So, today, we're going to dig into an idea that might feel a little controversial. We're going to talk about why those safe, practical goals you've been setting your whole life might actually be the very thing holding you back. And we'll explore what happens when you swap them for a truly monumental vision.
I mean, we've all heard this a million times, right? It's the advice you get at graduation, in self-help books, you name it. And look, it sounds sensible, it sounds safe, it sounds logical. But what if that safe advice is actually the biggest risk you could take? What if being practical is the very thing preventing you from achieving something massive? That's the big question we're tackling today.
Okay, let's start with what I like to call the realistic goal trap. The idea here is that when we're being practical, we're not really playing it safe. What we're actually doing is building a ceiling, a self-imposed limit on what we can achieve.
You know, when you really break it down, it's a huge contrast. Small goals, they kind of lead to small lives. And if you miss a small goal, the failure is so minor it barely registers, which means the motivation just isn't there. But a monumental vision, that's a whole different ballgame. It unleashes these incredible psychological and strategic forces that can completely change the entire path of your life.
And that brings us to the big goal advantage. The best way to think about a massive goal isn't just as some target off in the distance. Think of it more like a magnet, or even a gravitational force.
See, a truly huge vision does something amazing. It starts pulling things towards it. Seriously, the most talented people, they want to join a revolutionary mission, not just an okay project. Resources and opportunities start showing up out of nowhere, simply because you're playing in a bigger arena. Your vision becomes this central point that literally attracts all the key ingredients for success.
This also forces a massive shift in creativity. When your goal is just a small improvement, you tend to make small, predictable tweaks. But when your goal is monumental, well, you have to throw the old playbook out the window. You are forced to innovate.
Let's take saving money, for instance. Your goal is to save $10,000. Okay, you could probably get there by cutting back on lattes and a few subscriptions. Simple tweaks. But what if your goal is to save $10 million? Cutting coffee isn't going to cut it, right? You have to totally rethink your strategy. Maybe start a business, create entirely new income streams. The sheer scale of the goal forces a complete revolution in your thinking.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. A massive goal sounds exhausting. What about all the effort and the risk? It's a fair point. We assume a massive goal requires an impossibly massive amount of work. But it's time we redefine that relationship. Now, get ready for this, because it's a pretty wild idea. The initial effort, the planning, the courage it takes to start, is often surprisingly similar whether your goal is medium-sized or absolutely massive. The real barrier isn't always the work itself, it's our perception of the risk involved.
Let's make this super concrete. Say you want to launch a local podcast. You need a microphone, some software, a content plan, and the guts to hit record. Now, what do you need to launch a global podcast? Well, a microphone, some software, a content plan, and the guts to hit record. The foundational effort is almost identical, but the potential impact, it's not even in the same universe.
And the same logic applies to your career. Asking for a $5,000 raise takes research, a lot of prep, and one very courageous conversation. And asking for a $20,000 raise, it takes the exact same steps. The effort is the same, but the reward is 4 times bigger. This also completely reframes how we should think about failure. When you aim incredibly high, even your mistakes become incredibly valuable. Why? Because you're learning lessons on a much higher level. Honestly, falling short of a massive goal often puts you miles ahead of where you'd be if you just safely completed a small one.
All right, so you might be thinking, okay, I'm sold on the big vision, but how in the world do I actually do it? This is where we need to shift from just mindset to actual strategy. It's all about building systems for success.
The magic word here, the key concept to make all this happen, is leverage. And it's not just some Wall Street term. It's about being strategic. It's about asking, how can I use a tiny input of my money, my time, or my focus to generate an absolutely massive result?
And we can break this down into 3 main types. You've got financial leverage, where you're making your money work for you through investment. Then there's time leverage, where you finally stop trading your hours for dollars by hiring people or automating tasks. And finally, focus leverage, which is all about getting ruthless with the 80-20 rule, finding that 20% of your effort that's going to deliver 80% of your results.
You see what's happening here? This is a fundamental shift in your role.
When you think this big, you stop being just a worker, endlessly turning the gears yourself. You become the architect. You're the one standing above the machine, designing it to run on your behalf.
But look, building systems is only one part of the equation. The most powerful piece of this whole puzzle isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become.
Think about it this way. Your goals are basically a statement about who you believe you are. So setting small goals just reinforces a small identity. But when you commit to a massive vision, you are forced to upgrade your own identity to match it. That goal stops being something you're just chasing, and it becomes someone you are actively becoming.
And this identity shift happens across the board. Your mindset transforms from an employee waiting for instructions to an owner who takes full responsibility. Your whole function changes from just completing tasks to providing real solutions, and your role in the world evolves from someone who follows to someone who leads, inspiring others to join that vision.
It really all boils down to this one core idea. Your income, your impact, it's not tied to how busy you are. It's tied directly to the scale of the problems you're willing to take on and solve.
So the takeaway here is pretty clear, isn't it? It's time to stop playing it so safe. Stop settling for the small comfort of tiny wins and the insignificance of tiny failures. It's time to really commit to the power of thinking big.
So I want to leave you with this one question, just for you to think about. What is that huge, ambitious, massive goal that you've been too afraid to even admit to yourself? Because that's almost certainly where your real potential is hiding.